Hello and welcome. Clarence and I are at your service again today. Today we are going to be talking about the circulatory system. The circulatory system being where the blood travels in our body and particularly in our heart. Clarence again has volunteered, and I thank him very much for his service. He has actually brought a friend along that we'll meet later on to help us out even more. Her name's Jenny. Now, circulatory system is all behind the lungs, behind the rib cage as well, but as you can see, Clarence has very nicely removed his rib cage so that we can see clearly inside. Today, what we're going to do is remove, I think, the front of his lungs. So there's the front of that lung gone, and the front of that lung. We're then going to remove the front of his heart, just like that. What we're going to talk about now, if you were to take a little bit of your blood and put it into Clarence's heart here, or let's say it's Clarence's blood, and the heart was pumping away madly, it would take about 1 minute for the blood to travel one full circuit of what we're going to do right now. Let's pretend that we're getting some deoxygenated blood coming back from the body, and that's where we will start, okay? So actually what I'll do, I'll borrow Jenny here. Now, as you can see, Jenny doesn't have a body, and really, to tell you the truth, though she's a friend of Clarence's, she isn't a great friend of mine. I think she's really not a nice person at all. Heartless, actually. Heartless she is. I'm going to remove the front of her heart, and I'm going to do this because her heartstrings stand out a lot more. If you've ever heard that term, heartstrings, he tugged on my heartstring or she tugged on my heartstring, there actually really are heartstrings in there. Using Jenny's heart, we'll pretend, we'll come back to Clarence and we'll say here, see the blue vein there? That's heading back into the heart. And we're going to start just as the blood starts coming through that vein there and into this section here. And that section there is called the left. Sorry, it's not. That's the right. Actually, I should point that out to you, because if you look at this, when you're looking at that there, that looks like your left, doesn't it? But when you consider that heart, if it was in me, would be on the right-hand side of my body. That's why we call it the right atrium. So there we have the right atrium, and it's going to travel from the right atrium through the heartstrings into the right ventricle. Okay, from the right ventricle. Now, it's a bit difficult to see, but imagine the heart's covered over there, and that right ventricle goes back up through there. And you can see we've got a little bit of a non-return valve in there that will stop blood from coming back in once it's been pumped through. So the right atrium into the right ventricle, from the right ventricle up through this blue blood vessel. Normally a blue blood vessel, and try saying that 10 times fast, is called a vein because it's deoxygenated and normally is bringing blood back to the heart. But in this case, this is a blue artery because it is deoxygenated blood, but it is sending the blood away from the heart. So this is called the pulmonary artery. So we're going from there to there, up through the pulmonary artery, and there's our pulmonary artery there, and it's going straight into the lungs. Now, if we pull Clarence's heart out and turn it around, you'll see that that pulmonary artery splits into two. One goes into that lung, one comes across there and goes into that lung. When we look at pictures, we normally think it looks like these are running forever, but they're not. They're so close. It's a tiny little artery going from there, splitting in two, and it's only very small as it runs off into the lungs. Okay, so we've gone through the pulmonary artery into the lungs, and then we're going to come back into the heart via the pulmonary veins, okay, which are these ones here. Okay, and they're bringing us straight back into this cavity here. Okay, and that cavity there is our left atrium. So from our left atrium, because I like them, in our left atrium there, we're going to come down through our heartstrings into the right ventricle, and then from our right ventricle we're going to go up, see through there, you can see in there is another one of those non-return valves that is going to stop blood coming back into the heart once it's been pumped through. So from that left ventricle we're going to go up and through this blood vessel. So there's that blood vessel there. Okay, now that is a massive blood vessel. If you look at it, it comes out here and it splits into two. Well, actually it splits into several. There's 1, 2, 3, lots of little arteries heading off that way, and another big one, and that's that one there. That is massive, going down to the rest of the body. And then we've got these ones here that are going up and into the head and brain and probably shoulders as well. Okay, so from our left ventricle, we're going through this blood vessel, which is called the aorta, and out to the rest of the body. So it's going down that way to the body in that section, and it's going up through here to the rest of the body on the top half of the body. Then finally, after it's gone out to the body and all of the oxygen has been sucked out of it and all of the carbon dioxide has been put back into it, it's going to come back into the heart through this blood vessel here. And now that is called the Vena Cava, and it's bringing the blood back into the heart. So that is the whole trip that our blood does in 1 minute. In 1 minute, we go from right atrium to right ventricle, through the pulmonary artery into the lungs, from the lungs back through the pulmonary vein into the left atrium to the left ventricle, then through the aorta into the body, and from the body back through the vena cava into the atrium again. That is your circulatory system. That is where it fits in your body. It keeps us alive. That's what it does. Now, if you want to work out how to remember all of these new words, hang around for just a few minutes and I'll show you a great trick on how to do that. See ya. Clarence, thank you for your service. I really appreciate it. Hello and welcome back, and this is our third different type of memory technique, and it is called the memory castle. And basically, you take somewhere that's very special to you, your own castle, and to be able to remember things, you actually grab pictures and you put them down in different places around that castle. And what I'm going to do today is take you for a walk through my memory castle and show you how I'm going to remember the direction that our blood flows through our body all the way from the right atrium through the body and all the way back. Memory castle, here we go. This is my castle, as you can see, and this is where I've positioned everything. The very first thing I've positioned is the right atrium. This is where I've positioned it in my memory castle. Some people would be able to remember that just by looking at the words, but I go a step further. I actually take a picture and put it in there. Now, if you look there, you'll see that when I think of atrium, I see a great big glass building. And you'll notice also that that great big glass building is running off to the right. So that is my right atrium. Our next step, we're going to move on. Let's go. Following around this way, and again, our second is the right ventricle, and there is where I've placed the right ventricle in my memory castle. But again, I need a picture. So right there on the fan, you will see a vent. Now that's something I know very well because I used to install those all over the country. That is a vent, and see all the water running out the right hand side of it? That is my trickle. So here we have a right ventricle. Okay, let's move on to our third. Now here on, there we go. Here on my CNC router, I have placed the pulmonary artery. And again, the words aren't good enough for me. Here, you can see a little man sitting in a pool. That's my pool man. And notice just how hairy he is. That is a pulmonary sitting right there. And look what's just appeared beside him. This pool man, this hairy pool man, is also an art model. He's an artery. So here we have a pulmonary artery, and that's how I remember the pulmonary artery. Artery is the first artery that we're going to pass through on our way to the next part of circulatory system. And here we go. And as I move further down through my castle, I find the lungs. And again, I have to tell you, looking at words doesn't work for me. So there we have, on our milling machine, I have a pair of human lungs just sitting there. And off we go again. Over to the bandsaw. And when we look at the bandsaw, there's the words, which again for me are just of no use whatsoever. So there is our little pullman, our hairy pullman. So that's the pulmonary, and you'll notice he's looking in the mirror, he really is quite vain. So we've got a pulmonary vein is the fifth part of our circulatory system. And as we wander around my memory castle again, you'll see there are the words that say left atrium, but that isn't good enough for me. So again, like I said, an atrium is running off to the left, and it's a great big glass building sitting right there on top of the wood lathe is my left atrium. And as we move further along, here it is. Again, you'll notice I've put these up high. That's because, like I said to you, the main word that I'm picking up here is the ventricle. So up there on the fan is my left vent with all that water trickling out the side. That's the left ventricle in my mind palace. And there is our number 7, or our 7th part of the circulatory system. And as we make our way through to number 8, we have here, and I'll just see if I can get the camera a little bit steady. We have the 8th section, that is the aorta. And of course, words don't work for me. So you'll notice I have the little donkey from Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, and he is saying thank you, and it's aorta, and that's how I remember aorta. And next, we're going to move on to the 9th step in our circulatory system. And that 9th step, of course, is a body. And there we have our body, and that is step number 9 in the circulatory system. And there we have step number 9, a body lying on the floor in the welding booths, is how I'm going to remember step number 9 of the circulatory system. And finally, on to step number 10. In this little welding bay, the Vena Cava. Now I can't remember the words. I said that the whole way along, so I've stuck a picture up on the back wall of Venus Williams because she's one of my favourite tennis players. And look at her, Vena is in a cave, and that is how I am remembering Vena Cava, in the centre grinding bay at the back of my memory palace. So finally, after step 10, we make our way back all the way around to the right atrium, which was the beginning of our journey in my 3D printer. So that is how you use a memory palace. Pick somewhere you know really, really well and just place objects in your mind. So this is an imagining game. It's not like I just did, which was actually real, but it's an imagining game. Or maybe you could do just what I've just done and walk around your bedroom or your house and place names. And then you'll be able to remember in future by picturing that little picture or that little object or whatever it is. But just imagine how many things you could remember. Out there, I have got simply thousands of places for me to place thoughts and imagination and memories so that I can go back and pick up that memory at any time. This is scientifically proven to be a sensational way to remember things. The memory palace is by far the very best memory technique I've taught you so far, and I really, truly hope you use it. See ya, Clarence.